My research paper was on the Mayans number system. The Mayans were normally well thought out to be one of the greatest advanced in ancient civilization. They were engaged in Mesoamerica, which include parts of Mexico, Central America, and Yukon Peninsula. Their culture arose between 1500 and the 800 BC. Also, sources have believed that they also arose as early as 2600 BC. The Mayans developed many elaborate and urban systems, and they were called the Hieroglyphic writing. And they also developed something similar to what the Americans did. And they also invented a urban mathematical system to ever originate in America. So the Mayans number system is based on 20, and it is called the Visual system. That's what they call it. And how this works, they have dots, lines, and shells, symbols that look like shells. And they use these dots the dots are pretty much their numerals of each of the numbers, and the numbers go through 0 through 19, for example. So 0 would be just a shell. 1 would have 1 dot. The number 2 would have 2 dots. The number 3 would have 3 dots. And the number 4 would have 4 dots. And the number 5 would have a line. And when we get into the reason for this is that 1 dot equals 1. Equals 1. So 2 dots, that's why you have 2 dots. When you get to, and that's why you have 3 dots and 4 dots. But however, when you get to the 5, and as I said, it was a line, just a line represents 5. So when you get to 6, you have a dot and a line, which means 1 plus 5 gives you 6, because the line equals 5 and the dot equals 1. Just like 7, you have 2 dots and a line, so 5 plus 2 gives you 7. Then it's so forth. Number 8 has 3 dots and 1 line. Number 9 has 4 dots and 1 line. 10, when you get to the double digits like 10, you're starting to use 2 lines. Like 10 through 14 is what you would use for 2 lines. So you would have 2, so for 10 would be 2 lines, because 5 plus 5 is 10. For 11, you would have 2 lines, which would be 5 plus 5 and 1 dot to make it 11. For 12, you'd have 2 lines and 2 dots, which would be 5 plus 5 plus 2 is 12. And then you have, for 13, you would have 2 lines and 3 dots, which give you 13. Then for 14, you'd have 2 lines and 4 dots, which would give you 14. When you get through 15 through 19, you start using 3 lines. So for 15, you would have 3 lines, which would be 5 plus 5 plus 5, which is 15. For 16, you would have 3 lines and 1 dot. So 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 1 gives you 16. And then so forth. Like 17 is 3 lines and 2 dots. 18 is 3 lines and 3 dots. And 19 is 3 lines and 4 dots. And that's how they did their numerals of the base 20. Also, the base 20 continues all the way to the number 400. And they have such thing as new placeholder. So this number 400 starts as a new placeholder, and this is also considered the base of 20. And what it is that when the number system has reached 2020s, it moves to the next placeholder. And the number system, the number 400 is represented with a dot on top of a 0, which would be a shell, and on top of another 0, which would be a shell, and it would be 400 plus 0 equals 400. So when it reaches the 2020s, your dot is 1 dot gives you your 400. And another example would be the number 845, which is represented in 2 dots. So now since now we're talking about in the 400, so 1 dot is 400. So if you have 2 dots, that gives you 400 plus 400 gives you 800. So you're lacking 45. And then it's on top of another 2 dots and on top of a bar. And you could do the equation. The equation for that is 400 times 2 plus 20 times 2 plus 5 times 1 gives you your 845, like we did on the numerals. Also, there is a 4-place value, which you get into the 8,000s. And the 8,000s also considered the base of 20 system. So pretty much there would be 2400s, and you would be the next place value. And then you have, after the base 20, Mayans do talk about the base 10 number system, and it's different from the 20 number system because the place values goes of the power of 10 versus the base 20 goes to the power of 20, like 20 squared, 21, 20 24th, 20, square root of each one. The base number system is 10 squared, 10 third. From this, the Mayan system goes up in powers of 20. Is a twist in one thing. Mayans use multiples of 360s instead of 400s. The purpose of this was the Mayans used the number system to keep track of time. So now we're getting track of time. Mayans also had a special calendar that they used, and they actually had 2 calendars. One was a ritual calendar and was composed of 260 days known as Tzolk'in. And this calendar contained 13 months of 20 days each. So, 20 base system, 20 days. And the months were actually named after 13 gods, and the 20 days were numbered from 0 to 19. So, that's how they're using the 20 base system for their calendars. The second calendar is a 365-day civil calendar that is called the Hab. Unlike the original calendar, this calendar consists of 18 months, and the calendar names was after agriculture or religious events that had 20 days, and that was also numbers from 0 to 19. So both calendars were both on the 20 base system. They also had short months of only 5 days that was called Weyabi. And for the Mayans, during these 5 days, it was called a lucky period, meaning that the Mayans did not wash or comb their hair and did not do no hard work during them days. If they did any of this in their minds or their belief, they would have bad luck and become poor, and they would be unhappy for the rest of their lives. And Mayans also did not have any methods of multiplication and did not use division of numbers. However, they were capable of being used to demonstrate the operations of multiplication. And the example of this, actually from a paper that I wrote, actually this comes from the paper, like right off the paper that I wrote, actually off a website, and the understanding it better from word for word. The Mayans' concern for the understanding the cycles of celestial bodies, particularly the sun, the moon, and Venus, led them to accumulate the large set of highly accurate observations. An important aspect of their cosmology was the search for major cycles in which the position of several objects repeated. And this is what Connor and Robertson demonstrated on a website that I got for the multiplication and the division of numbers. So what it means is that they had no other instruments that were stick than a stick when carrying out astronomical measurements. And the 2 sticks that were used were from a cross for viewing an astronomical object, and right angles was formed through the sticks. They also, in Chichen Itza, the Karkul building is believed to be one of the Mayans' observatory which means that they used the windows of the building to position the lines of the sun for the spring equinox of 21 March, and it was also related to the moon. And they were able to calculate the length of the year to be 363.242 days. And also they calculated like the lunar months. And my astronomers actually went to a city called Copan, and it borders Honduras and Guatemala. And they astonished 149 lunar months, and it lasted to 4,400 days. Also in the number system for the Mayans calendar, the units of the Mayans calendar were called kin for the days that were on the calendar. Another word they used for the calendar was called unal for second order of 20 days. In the Visual numeric system, there should contain 400 days in the third order. And considering this beginning the perfect Visual system, Maya's priests introduced a regular for calendar calculation person. The third order, which is called the ton, was made by 18 unals or 360 kins. And this was actually closer to the solar years. And the dates express 5 numerals in long count numbers, and it lasts from the beginning of time and the different means. Also, the Mayans number system had no concept of fractions also. And it was a true positional base 20 system that it failed to have a positional system of the mathematical properties. So overall, the Mayans number system consisted of the base 20. They used dots and lines and symbols, and the symbols looked like shells. Each symbol, like your dot, your lines, and your zero, your shells, all represented of what the numbers would be. Also, they used the 20 base system for the Mayans calendar, and so forth on.